The instant that low, menacing rumble rolled in from the backyard, I knew precisely what had gone down. Peering through the kitchen window, I spotted her rooted to the spot like a deer in headlights, her clipboard quivering in a death grip of pale knuckles. Margaret Peaton, self-crowned queen of the Willowbrook Estates, HOA and resident busybody extraordinaire, had at long last stepped over the line. She'd been tiptoeing along for months. There she was, 3 feet past my gate, staring down 90 pounds of coiled, alert German shepherd. Titan hadn't lunged, he was far too disciplined for that. He simply held his ground with perfect control, lips curled just enough to flash ivory and drive the message home. She had invaded his domain without invitation, and now she was about to get a very practical lesson in why those bright yellow warning signs weren't mere lawn decor. Let me rewind a little. My name is Marcus Chen. About 18 months ago, I moved into Willowbrook Estates on the outskirts of Denver. After 2 decades as a K-9 handler with the Denver PD, a shredded rotator cuff forced early retirement, and all I wanted was some quiet. This neighborhood looked ideal, tidy, peaceful, with big fenced yards. Perfect for Titan, my retired police partner and best friend who still needed room to stretch his legs and burn energy. What I didn't anticipate was Margaret Peaton, a woman who wielded her HOA presidency like a petty tyrant with a personal vendetta. Trouble started almost the day I unpacked. First came a citation, because my mailbox was supposedly the wrong black. Then my grass dared to grow a 1/4 inch past regulation. She even tried to fine me for leaving my own pickup in my own driveway overnight, claiming some dusty bylaw about commercial vehicles. Every time I politely produced the approved color swatch, the measuring tape showing perfect height, or the registration proving my F-150 was for personal use only, every time she stalked off with her mouth pruned so tight it nearly vanished. Furious that I refused to hand her a victory, the real war began when I put up a simple 8x10 storage shed in the back corner well under size limits, painted the exact approved shade, and plastered precisely where the guidelines allowed. Margaret decided thatch had offended her personally. She claimed it sat too close to the fence. My survey said otherwise. She insisted the color was off. My receipt for HOA approved paint disagreed. Her newest conspiracy theory? I was secretly operating an unlicensed business from it. Laughable. It just held the mower, weed eater, and Titan's old bite sleeves and training dummies for weeks. She'd been demanding to inspect it herself, showing up at random hours, clipboard brandished like a warrant, insisting the bylaws granted her entry. Each time I calmly refused, citing basic property rights and the fact that no covenant on earth overrides the Fourth Amendment without a court order. I even ran it past a lawyer buddy who confirmed she had zero legal authority to cross my threshold uninvited. Margaret, however, considered laws mere suggestions when they inconvenienced her crusade. Things escalated when she started using a selfie stick to photograph over my 6-foot privacy fence, trying to peek through the shed's tiny window. I caught her one morning, balanced on tiptoes, phone on a pole, like some discount spy. When confronted, she insisted visual compliance checks from adjacent vantage points were totally allowed. My response? 4 new security cameras and fresh signage. No trespassing. Private property guard dog on duty. Titan wasn't some backyard mutt. He was a titled, dual-purpose police K-9 with a bite history longer than most people's rap sheets. Gentle as a lamb with friends and family. But the moment an unknown crossed the line, the switch flipped. Margaret's reaction to the signs was pure theater, standing at the fence line screeching that I couldn't intimidate her, that she knew the rules better than I ever would, and that if I kept obstructing her duty, as she'd handle the matter personally. I still remember her exact words, they'd prove handy later. Voice shrill enough to peel paint, she yelled, "You think you're clever with your little signs and cameras? I have ways of dealing with non-compliant residents. That shed is coming down, one way or another." I just smiled and reminded her that unauthorized entry was trespassing, and that Titan was trained to apprehend and hold until released. She stormed off in a cloud of floral perfume and indignation. But the glint in her eye told me she wasn't finished. I should have known payback was coming when I spotted her silver Prius parked down the block that Tuesday afternoon. I was inside finishing paperwork, Titan sunbathing in the yard, everything calm until that unmistakable working growl vibrated through the open window. Not his happy woof. Not his playful grumble. This was the real deal. The sound that used to make fleeing suspects throw their hands up before I even got out of the cruiser. I reached the window in time to see Margaret actually inside my fenced yard. Having slipped through the side gate, I'd stupidly left unlatched after hauling in groceries. Clipboard hugged to her chest like body armor, she was trying to sidestep toward the shed. Titan, of course, had already inserted himself between her and her objective with textbook precision. Ears forward, stance low and balanced, a quiet but continuous growl, underscoring the point. Not one more step. Every time she inched sideways, he mirrored her perfectly. When she tried retreating toward the gate, he adjusted to keep her corralled without ever touching her. Years of training on full display, controlled, professional, and terrifyingly effective. Margaret's face cycled from smug entitlement to wide-eyed panic in seconds. In a voice now several octaves high. She tried. Good doggy, nice boy. I'm just here to check the shed. I'm allowed. I'm the HOA president. Titan answered with a deeper growl, amber stare never wavering. She waved her clipboard like it might part the Red Sea. He cocked his head, almost entertained. Then she made her fatal error, fumbling for her phone to call for help. Fingers shaking too hard to dial properly, I stepped onto the back porch, calm as if I were on any other call. Titan, watch. Instantly, he dropped into a rock-solid sit beside me, eyes still locked on target, but the immediate pressure eased a notch. Margaret remained boxed in. One wrong twitch, and he'd be back on his feet. She shrieked, "Your vicious animal attacked me. I'm calling 911. You'll be sued, and that monster will be euthanized." I couldn't suppress the chuckle. By all means, Margaret, call them. I'm sure the officers would love to hear how you committed criminal trespass, ignored half a dozen posted warnings, and met exactly the consequence those signs promised. And just so we're clear, Titan hasn't attacked you. If he had, you'd already be on your way to the ER instead of standing there screaming. She sputtered like a kettle about to explode, but she did dial 911, breathlessly informing the dispatcher that she'd been mauled by a rabid monster while performing critical HOA duties. While we waited for the cavalry, I casually pulled out my phone and hit record. Margaret paced in the tiny circle Titan still permitted her, ranting about lawsuits, animal control death squads, and how she'd have me evicted by sundown. "You think you're untouchable," she hissed, "but I have connections. My brother-in-law's a lawyer, my cousin's high up in animal control. You and that creature are done." Us kept the camera steady, glancing now and then at the red blinking light on the backyard camera that was capturing everything inglorious for thousand. The footage would show her lifting the gate latch herself, pausing long enough to read every sign, and then marching in anyway. It would also show Titan executing a picture-perfect non-contact detention that any K-9 instructor would applaud. 10 minutes later, a patrol car rolled up. 2 officers stepped out, and I actually knew both from the job. Bradley's eyes flicked from me to Margaret to Titan sitting statue still at my left heel, and I saw the corner of his mouth twitch. "Marcus," he said, "all business. Mind telling me what we've got here?" Margaret launched before I could open my mouth, shrieking about vicious beasts, her sacred HOA authority, and how I'd deliberately sixed a killer on an innocent public servant. She waved that clipboard around like it was the 10 Commandments etched in gold. Bradley let her run until she was pink-faced and panting, scribbling notes the whole time while Officer Kim walked the fence line, inspecting the signs. When Margaret finally had to breathe, Bradley turned to me. I gave him the short version: months of targeted harassment, repeated demands for illegal entry, and today's criminal trespass. I played the security clip on my phone. Margaret opening the gate, reading the warnings, stepping through anyway. "As you can see," said calmly. She ignored multiple posted notices. "Titan is a retired police K-9. He detained a trespasser exactly by the book. No contact, no injury, just control until the handler arrived." Kim came back from the gate. "Ma'am, Did you see those signs before you entered? Margaret turned the color of an overripe beet. HOA authority supersedes. Bradley cut her off gently. Ma'am, really doesn't. HOA covenants do not trump the Colorado Criminal Code. You were explicitly warned, in writing, that a guard dog was on duty. You're extremely fortunate he's this well trained. Margaret tried again. It attacked me. It growled. I feared for my life. Bradley was already flipping open his citation book. Margaret Peterson, citing you for criminal trespass in the second degree. The property owner has made it clear you are not welcome without express permission, and you disregarded that. This is your formal notice. Enter this property again without invitation, and you will be arrested. Do you understand? Her mouth opened, closed, opened again, but nothing came out. She stared at the yellow ticket like it was written in ancient Greek, then at me, then at Titan, whose tongue was now lolling in what I maintain was the canine equivalent of a smirk. This is absurd, she finally croaked. I'm the president of the HOA. I was doing my job. Officer Kim didn't bat an eye. Your job description doesn't include breaking the law, ma'am. Might want to read your own bylaws, and maybe talk to an actual attorney about the limits of your power. As the officers turned to leave, Bradley pulled me aside. Titan's still sharper than half the rookies I ride with, he said under his breath. Best partner I ever had. I answered, scratching Titan behind the ears. Margaret overheard. You could literally watch the realization hit her like a slap. She'd picked a fight with an ex-cop and his decorated K9. The last of the color drained from her face. Bradley handed her the citation one last time, repeated the trespass warning, and both officers left. Margaret stood frozen for a long second, paper trembling in her hand. This isn't over, she muttered. The board will hear about this. I smiled. I'm counting on it, Margaret. I'll bring the video, the police report, and a few neighbors who are tired of your nonsense. Should be a fun meeting. She spun toward the gate. Titan offered one polite but pointed woof. She broke into a jog forth last 10 feet. The aftermath was glorious. Word travels fast in a place where the biggest excitement is usually someone's Christmas light staying up until January. Within days, neighbors I barely knew were knocking on my door with their own Margaret horror stories. 2 weeks later, an emergency HOA meeting was called. I showed up with a thumb drive, the police report, signed statements from 5 other residents, and popcorn-worthy security footage. The board voted 6-0 to remove her as president, effective immediately. The criminal trespass citation carried a $500 fine. When she tried to fight it in court, the judge upheld it and added a verbal warning that any further contact with me would trigger a restraining order. Then her employer, a local real estate firm, decided that senior agent convicted of criminal trespass wasn't the branding they wanted. She was gone within weeks. The next election, and she ran for any board seat she could get. Collected exactly 3 votes herself and, I assume, her husband and sister, and vanished from the ballot forever. The new president, Janet, a retired schoolteacher with common sense and a golden retriever, sent out a newsletter reminding everyone that HOA authority stops at the property line. My shed still stands. Still boring, still 100% compliant. I did one new sign beneath the guard dog warning. Private property enter uninvited. Meet Titan. Just ask Margaret. Every time her car passes my house now, she accelerates like the hounds of hell are behind her and stares straight ahead. Titan gets extra treats and has become the unofficial neighborhood mascot. Kids ask to pet the hero dog on our walks. Margaret's record now permanently reads, criminal trespass, $500 fine, judicial warning. The look on her face when the gavel came down, shock, humiliation, and the sudden, crushing understanding that her little kingdom was gone forever, was worth more than any fine I'd have imposed myself.